Book of Heaven. Volume 16. The 23rd of January to the 5th of February 1924. Page 80 to 88. January 23, 1924. Just as Jesus braided the creating fiat with his redeeming fiat, so does he want the third fiat to be braided with the creating and redeeming fiat. The humanity of Jesus is smaller than his eternal will. I was abandoning all of myself in the holy will of God, and I thought to myself, the fiat formed the whole universe, and in the fiat the divinity made display of its love toward man, exposing it in each created thing, in such a way that, impressed in each created thing, one can see that fiat which, with such great mastery, power and harmony, was released from the divine bosom toward the creature. The fiat formed the redemption, so much so, that in each thing which the eternal Word did, the fiat is present, and surrounding them like a crown, it gives them life. So, the creating fiat and the redeeming fiat are braided together, and one echoes within the other, forming one single fiat, as there is no created act which my sweet Jesus did no braid with the requital of his fiat. Now, my adored Jesus has told me many times that the third fiat is needed so that the works of creation and redemption may be completed. So, how will this be done? Who will form so many fiats as to braid the creating fiat and the redeeming fiat? While I was thinking of this, my lovable Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, if the Supreme Majesty released so much love toward mankind in all the things created by his omnipotent fiat, it was right that I, his son, in his same fiat, would do as many acts to requite him for his love. Braiding his fiat with mine, so that another fiat, human and divine, might rise from the earth to exchange the kiss with his fiat, be braided with it, and substitute for the return of love of all creatures. Until I came upon earth, the fiat which was spread throughout all creation was alone, but as I came, it was no longer alone. Indeed, my first task was that of forming as many acts in the eternal fiat for as many as my Father had done in creation. So, with my fiat, the creating fiat had its sweet and harmonious company. Now, this fiat does not want to remain in two, it wants the third fiat, it wants to be in three, and this third fiat it is you who will do. This is why many times I have drawn you outside of yourself, and I have placed you within that very creating and redeeming fiat, so that you might do your flight, and as you would braid your fiat with ours, the creating and redeeming fiat might be braided by the third fiat, your own. The more you operate in our fiat, the sooner you will reach the way of our fiat. And just as in the fiat of creation many prodigious and beautiful things, the whole universe, came out of us, and the fiat of redemption substituted for all the acts of creatures, taking its lost child by the hand to lead him back into the bosom of his celestial Father. So will the third fiat, once it has done its course, let its effects be seen, that my will be known and loved, and take its dominion in order to have its kingdom upon earth. Each additional act of yours which you will braid with our fiat, will be a human kiss that you will have our fiat be given, a greater bond that you will form between the divine will and the human will, in such a way that, placed in accord, it may have no reluctance to making itself known and taking its royal dominion. Everything is in making itself known, the rest will come by itself. This is why many times I have recommended to you that you omit to write nothing of what regards my will, because knowledge is the way, and its light serves as trumpet to call those who are listening, to make itself heard. And the more the trumpet sounds, and it sounds more for as many more knowledges as it has, to be manifested, the more people will rush up. Knowledge takes the attitude now of pulpit, now of teacher, now of compassionate father and excessive lover. In sum, it has all the ways in its power in order to enter the hearts, to conquer them and to triumph in everything. And the more knowledges it contains, the more ways it has in its power. Almost confused by what Jesus was telling me, I said, "My sweet love, you know how miserable I am and in what state I find myself. Therefore I feel it is impossible for me that with my acts I may reach the same way as that of the creating fiat and of the redeeming fiat." And Jesus, so, our fiat does not contain all the power it wants? If it did it in creation and in redemption, How can it not be able to do it in you? What it takes is your will, and I will impress my fiat in yours, just as I impressed my divine fiat in the will of my humanity, so we will follow the same way. My will can do anything. In my all-seeingness it will make present to you the acts of creation and redemption, and you, with ease, with your acts will braid the third fiat to our fiat. Aren't you happy? And I, in seeing that my adored Jesus, as he was speaking about his will, was disappearing from me, remaining as though eclipsed within an immense light, just as when the sun makes the stars disappear, eclipsing them within its light, said, Jesus, my life, do not speak to me about your will, because then you eclipse yourself within its light, and I lose you, and remain alone without you. How can it be that your will makes me lose my life, my all? And Jesus added, My daughter, my humanity is smaller than my eternal will, it has its boundaries, its limits, and therefore, as my endless will draws near you with its knowledges, my humanity is lost within its light, and as though eclipsed. This is why you do not see me, but I remain always in you, and I enjoy, as I see the little newborn of my will eclipsed within the same light as my humanity. So, we are together, but because our sight is dazzled by the blazing light of the Supreme Volition, we cannot see each other. February 2, 1924. The abandonment in the divine will forms the wings in order to fly with the divine volition and to wander around with it, in the sphere of eternity. The immense circle of eternity. Those who take part in it. I felt very oppressed because of the privation of my sweet Jesus and for other reasons, which it is not necessary to put on paper, and my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior and pressing me to himself to give me strength, for I felt like succumbing, told me, my daughter, my will is life and motion of everything. But do you know who follows its motion and takes flight in my eternal volition, in such a way as to wander around, as it does, in the sphere of eternity, be wherever it is, and do whatever it does? The soul who is completely abandoned in my holy will. The abandonment forms the wings in order to fly together with my will. As abandonment ceases, she loses her flight and her wings are destroyed. Therefore, everyone feels the motion, the life of my will, because there is no motion which does not come from me, but they remain in the place at which they are. Only one who has the wings of the abandonment in me and follows the same way as my will, flies over all, both in heaven and on earth, enters the sphere of eternity, wanders around in the midst of the three divine persons, penetrates into their most intimate hiding places, and is aware of their secrets and of their beatitudes. It happens as to an engine which has the main wheel in the middle and many other small wheels around it, which are fixed. As the first wheel moves, all receive motion, but they never arrive at touching the first wheel, nor do they know anything of what it does and of the goods it contains. But there is another small wheel which is not fixed, and through a mechanism, it goes around continuously across all the small wheels, to be present at each motion of the prime wheel and to then start its round again. Now, this moving little wheel knows what is there in the main wheel and takes part in the good it contains. Well then, the first wheel is my will, the fixed small wheels are the souls who are abandoned to themselves, which renders them motionless in good. The moving little wheel is the soul who lives in my will, and the mechanism is her complete abandonment in me. Therefore, each lack of abandonment in me is a round that you lose in the sphere of eternity. If you knew what it means to lose an eternal round. On hearing this, I said, but tell me, my love, what does eternity mean, and what is this eternal round? And Jesus added, my daughter, eternity is an immense circle, in which one cannot know where it begins or where it ends. In this circle there is God, with no beginning and with no end, in which he possesses infinite happiness, beatitude, joys, riches, beauty, etc. At each divine motion, which never ceases, he unleashes from this circle of eternity new happiness, new beauties, new beatitudes, etc. But this new act is never interrupted, distinct among themselves, our contentments are always new. One is different from the other. Our beatitudes are so great and so many that, as we enjoy one, another surprises us continuously, and they never end, they are eternal, immense as we are. And what is eternal has the virtue of making ever new things arise. What is old, repeated things, do not exist in what is eternal. But do you know who takes part in heaven in this new act which is never exhausted? Those who will have practiced more good on earth. This good will be like the seed which will bring them the knowledge of our beatitudes, joys, beauty, love, goodness, etc. And according to the good which the soul has practiced upon earth, which has some accord with our different beatitudes, she will come closer to us, and in large gulps, she will fill herself with that beatitude whose seed she contains, to the point of overflowing. She will participate in all that is contained in the circle of eternity, and she will be filled for as many seeds as she has acquired on earth. It will happen as to one who has learned music, a job, or a science. When music is played, many listen and enjoy it, but who understands it? Who feels all those notes of joy or of sorrow penetrate into his intelligence and descend into his heart? Who feels as though filled and sees, in act, the scene which that music expresses? One who has studied and who has worked hard in order to learn it. The others enjoy, but do not understand. Their enjoyment is in the perception of their hearing, but all their interior remains empty. The same is for one who has learned science. Who enjoys more? One who has studied and has worn out his intelligence on books, on many scientific things, or one who has only looked at them? Certainly the one who has studied can earn fair profits, can occupy distinct positions. On the other hand, the other one can enjoy only with his sight, if he sees something related to science. And the same with all other things. If this happens on earth, much more so in heaven, where justice weighs with the scales of love every little good act done by the creature, and places upon that good act an unending happiness, joy and beauty. Now, what will happen to the soul who has lived in my will, in which all her acts remain like an eternal and divine seed? The circle of eternity will pour upon her so much that the whole celestial Jerusalem will remain stupefied, and will make new feasts and will receive new glory. February 5, 1924. The soul cannot go out of the divine will because her will is chained to the immutability of the divine. Effects of melancholy and of cheerfulness. I felt embittered because of the privation of my highest and only good. Even more, I felt that everything was over for me, and that the one who is all my life was to come no more, and that all the past had been a game of fantasy. Oh! Had it been in my power, I would have burned up all the writings, so that no trace might be left about me. My nature also felt the painful effects of this, but it is useless to say on paper what I went through, because the paper too, cruel, has not a word of comfort for me, and does not give me the one whom I so much long for. On the contrary, by saying it, it makes my pains more bitter, therefore I move on. So, while I was in such a hard state, my always lovable Jesus made himself seen to me with a stick of fire in his hand, telling me, "My daughter, where do you want me to beat you with this stick? I want to strike the world, therefore I have come to you, to see how many blows you want to receive yourself, so as to give the rest to creatures. So, tell me where you want me to beat you." And I, embittered as I was, said, "Beat me wherever you want to beat me, I don't want to know anything. I want nothing but your will." And he, again, "I want to know from you where you want me to beat you." And I, "No, no, I will never say that. I want there where you want." Jesus returned to ask me again, and seeing that I kept answering, "I want nothing but your will," he repeated, "So, you don't even want to say where you want me to beat you?" Then, without saying anything else, he beat me. Those blows were painful, but since they were coming from the hands of Jesus, they infused in me life, strength, trust. After he struck me, in such a way that I felt all beaten up, I clung to his neck, and drawing near his mouth, I tried to suckle. But as I did so, a most sweet liquid came into my mouth, which cheered me all up. But this was not my will, rather, I wanted his bitternesses, for he had so many in his most holy heart. Then I said to him, "My love, what a hard lot mine is. Your privation kills me, the fear that I might go out of your will crushes me. Tell me, where have I offended you? Why do you leave me?" And even though you are with me now, it does not seem to me that you have come to stay with me like before, to be together, but in passing. Ah! How can I be without you, my life? You yourself, tell me if I can. And while saying this, I burst into tears. And Jesus, pressing me to himself, told me, poor daughter of mine, courage, your Jesus does not leave you. Nor should you fear that you might go out of my will, because your will is chained to the immutability of mine. At most, it might be thoughts, impressions, that you will feel, but not true acts. In fact, since the immutability of my will is in you, when yours might be about to go out of mine, you will feel the firmness, the strength of my immutability, and will remain more chained to it. And besides, have you forgotten that I am not only in your heart, but in the whole world, and that from within you I direct the destiny of all creatures? What you feel is nothing other than the way the world is with me and the pains they give me. Since I am in you, they are reflected upon you. Ah! My daughter, how much does the world give us to suffer? But, come, courage, when I see that you can take no more, I leave everything and I come to be with my daughter, to cheer you and to cheer myself from the pains they give me. Having said this, he disappeared. I was left strengthened, yes, but with such melancholy as to feel myself dying. I felt as though soaked in a bath of bitternesses and afflictions, so much so, that I did not feel the strength to say to Jesus, "Come." Then, while I was doing my usual prayers, my beloved Jesus came back, telling me, "My daughter, tell me, why are you so melancholic? See, I come from the midst of creatures with tears in my eyes, my heart pierced, betrayed by many, and so I said to myself, let me go to my daughter, to my little newborn of my will, that she may dry my tears. With her acts that she has done in my will, she will give me the love and everything that the others do not give me. I will rest in her, and I will cheer her with my presence. And you, instead, let yourself be found as so melancholic, that I have to put my pains aside in order to relieve yours. Don't you know that cheerfulness for the soul is like fragrance for flowers, like condiment for foods, like the skin tone for people, like maturation for fruits, like the sun for plants? So, with this melancholy, you have not let me found a fragrance that may cheer me, nor a tasty food, nor a mature fruit. Rather, you are all faded as to move me to pity. Poor daughter, courage, cling to me, do not fear. I clung to him. I would have wanted to burst into tears, I felt my voice being suffocated, but I plucked up strength, I repressed my tears, and I said to him, Jesus, my love, my pains are nothing compared to yours. So, let us think about your pains if you don't want to add more bitternesses to mine. Let me dry your tears, and let me share in the pains of your heart. So he shared his pains with me, and while letting me see the grave evils present in the world, and those which will come, he disappeared from me.